Welcome back to Front Room Theology. It's great to have you with us again. Again, we're here on the front lawn, Tyler and I, talking about the Gospels. We're excited to talk with you through Luke today. But first, Tyler, tell us about something you've read recently or reading now.
So right now I'm reading a book called A Church Called Tove. It just came out a couple weeks ago, written by Scott McKnight and his daughter Laura. And it's pretty interesting because it spawned out of a lot of the major church scandals at churches like Willow Creek and I think Harvest, something like that. And he's just kind of looking at how certain cultures affect it and how this power abuse culture or power abuse church is created. And then in the last 2/3 of the book he focuses on here's the things we need to do that nurture culture of goodness, and goodness is tov is the Hebrew word for goodness. And so he just really focuses on how do you do that, and it's very introspective and are we creating a church culture of goodness, or are we creating one that leads to power abuse? And it's also I read this and I'm just am I doing this to people in general? And so it's I don't know, it's a really useful book, I think. So but yeah, culture of goodness, cool. Really that's a really good term.
May we be a culture that cultivates goodness. Okay, so we're looking at Luke today. We've looked at Matthew and Mark already. Tell us a little bit about how Luke is the same, maybe, but also what's distinctive about Luke and his telling of the gospel.
So Luke is very similar to Matthew and Mark in that they're in a category called the Synoptics, and most scholars think Luke had access to Mark and possibly Matthew, because when you look at Luke, basically almost everything in Mark is also in Luke. A lot of Matthew and Luke share a lot of similarities that aren't in Mark, like Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, very similar. But Luke does have a lot of the famous parables that we know of. They're only in Luke. And his style of writing, he has a very sophisticated style of Greek writing, and he has a very detailed account of this. He puts a lot of little details in that you don't quite see in Mark especially. So pay attention to those details, because I think they're very, very important in getting the meaning of what he's trying to do and the purpose of what he's trying to portray Jesus in a certain way, or the arrival of the kingdom in a way. So pay attention.
Yeah, cool. So what are some of the themes that Luke draws out?
Yeah, he really focuses on the other, the outcast, the oppressed, the poor. There's the big four in the Old Testament: the poor, the widow, the stranger, and the one other, I lost it, but orphan, there we go. But anyways, basically the people who are cast aside, a very big focus on them, and that salvation through the kingdom is coming through these people we don't expect. In fact, those are the people Jesus is going to. He's not going to the religious leaders or the political leaders. He's going to the marginalized and the outcasts, and they're the ones responding and following him, where the leaders are opposing him and killing him. So it's those are the people. And what's really interesting is if you read the Gospels, read the little parables and the stories Jesus tells, how they're always comparing these two different sides: rich and poor, man and woman, religious and irreligious, or Jewish and non-Jewish. It's always the one you don't expect being the more faithful to Jesus, or hearing the call. It's the story of Mary being told about the birth. She's more faithful than the previous story of Zechariah. It's I don't know. Or the Good Samaritan's a great one. Just how who's your neighbor? And you have the story of this priest and a Levite ignore this guy who's half dead, and then a Samaritan comes, which we think, that's being your neighbor, taking care of people. But a Samaritan helping a Jewish person is crazy, because the Samaritans are hated by the Jews. And so it's it's so backwards. It seems it's so upside down. That's the upside down kingdom. Love your enemies. Your enemies are your neighbor. It's crazy. So that's huge on Luke. Is the kingdom is coming to the people we least expect it.
Yeah, that's great. I can hear your answer already, but we've been asking this question every week. How did the gospel change everything? So with Matthew, it was the kingdom is here and it's available to everyone. With Mark, it was Jesus' victory over sin and death and the powers of Satan. How is Luke telling that story that everything's been changed? How is Luke?
And so I said, the kingdom's coming to the people we least expect. And I mean, the way the world is different is that's what happens. Look at the early church. You took a small group of people who were being persecuted And with no power. It's a lot of slaves, it's women, it's mostly women, a lot of slaves. And then like in a couple centuries, the whole Roman Empire is claimed to be Christian.
Yeah.
Like, how does that, like, an emperor, a Christian emperor came in? Like, how does that happen? It's just like the people you least expect it historically.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big ones of our day that we should really be thinking about is the status, like the role of women, because historically, and it's no mystery, like patriarchal society has been dominant in Western culture, and women's stories and voices have gone unheard or untold, and but if you look, these are the women are who lead the charge. They're leading the charge. Go read Luke chapter 8 verses 1 through 3, and it's just this list of women disciples of Jesus, and they're named too. They're all named, and there's a little bit about them, and one of them's financially supporting Jesus' whole ministry. Like, that's crucial. Like, they're so crucial, and yet they're the ones that are marginalized historically, and yet they're the ones leading the charge for the kingdom. So my challenge to us is, like, as a community of Christ followers, we need to let women's voices be lifted up, even at the cost of our voices coming down, because that's the whole story of the upside down kingdom. Is it's this up and down, and we're all equal in value and social status. And so, like, let's hear the voices and stories of women that have historically gone untold, and then the kingdom will flourish.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good. Well, we want to give women the last word with our episode today. So Grace has graciously agreed to read Mary's Magnificat out of Luke chapter 1 for us. So, yeah.
My soul glorifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior. For he has been mindful of the humble state of his servant. From now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me. Holy is his name. His mercy extends to those who fear him from generation to generation. He has performed mighty deeds with his arm. He has scattered those who are proud in their inmost thoughts. He has brought down rulers from their thrones, but has lifted up the humble. He has filled the hungry with good things, but has sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel, remembering to be merciful to Abraham and his descendants forever, just as he promised our ancestors. Thanks for joining us today, and blessings. We'll see you again next time.